Hello and welcome to Stylish Chats with Creatives. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking to Danielle Richardson. She is a fellow creative who we actually met in a studio in Leeds whilst you were styling. And we were both styling, I think, the same brand. And I came in wearing like a ton of leopard print. And I think you said to me, oh my God, love your leopard print dungarees.
Yep, 100%.
Because they're iconic. I do love them. And we were just chatting then about how much you actually do. So you style, you shoot weddings, you do art direction.
Yeah.
You do a lot, lady.
I do. Yeah, I do. I think it's nice to... I don't put my eggs all in one basket, I think, anymore, is the point. And I think it's allowed me to kind of realise what I actually want to do, instead of me doing everything purely for the economic gain, in that, we've got bills to pay and stuff. It's kind of, it's a bit more about understanding what's something that I really love. Like when you just said I shoot weddings. So probably 5 or 6 years ago when I started shooting weddings, I would shoot any wedding for very little. And I was doing loads. And then sort of slowly but surely I started going, actually, no, I'm going to charge proper money. So I did. And then I was doing maybe 12 to 15 a year. And then I realised that actually that was too much. And there are wedding photographers that are shooting like 40 or so a year. But it's sort of, I think the reason I started doing styling more is because of a stylist that I met at one of the agencies that I worked at. And I went in as a photographer's assistant because I did photography at university. I did fashion styling and photography
cool.
at London College of Fashion. So that was what I thought I was going to be. And obviously that didn't quite work out. But yeah, so I went in to be a photographer's assistant. And actually I spent the whole time just hanging out with her, and I wanted to do the styling, and I was really involved in that. And the photographer just said to me sort of halfway through, in a really lovely way, like this lovely photographer who, we've worked with him loads. And he was like, Danielle, I think that you're doing the wrong thing. I don't think you should be concentrating on this photography because you're not really that interested. And I'm not, in the studio sense. Like it's all just a bit... the lights and all that stuff. I'm like, oh no, I'm not interested. When I shoot really natural, and I do a lot of editing to it. But on that tangent, he was the one that sort of said, this is what you should be doing. And so from then on, that is what I wanted to do. So the more and more busy I've got with that over the last sort of 5 years or so, the more it's made me understand that that's what I should be doing. And then even within that like umbrella of styling, I mean, there's so much, are you a fashion stylist? Are you an interior stylist? Are you a prop or a still life or a product stylist, or like all of this stuff? And again, I kind of do all of that. I do food styling. I do kind of everything. And it's great. And I get booked for all of those different things. But I think there are some people that are put off by that. And they're like, well, no, I need a food stylist. And your website's kind of like, well, you're doing fashion, and then you're doing interiors, and then you're doing product. And then you're like, well, I know, but I'm just a style. Like, I kind of can. And I don't know, like, I think some people think it's brilliant and I think it's great. But there are times when you think, oh, maybe I should just concentrate on, like, a bit more like yourself. You are a stylist. That is what you do. Mm-hmm. And so people know what they're going to get when they get you. They're like, oh, yeah, Charlotte's go with her because she's done this. And it's very clear that that's what she does. Whereas with me, it's a bit like I just can do that. So I'm happy to do it. And yeah, like the whole art directing and all of that stuff, I feel like that's more grown up, which I really like as well. But I feel much more grown up when I'm like the art director. But also that's amazing because you get carte blanche on the project. So you're like, this is amazing. This is what I really want to do. So I think that and my like interiors stuff is definitely where I'm going and where I want to go and where I'm happy. And so flipping back to the weddings, I'm only doing 3 this year because I'm working so much doing the styling stuff and the art directing stuff that actually my weekends are pretty precious, but I don't want to not do them at all because I also really like shooting and I really love editing. So you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But I'm not really perfect or really, really, really honed in on one thing, which has its drawbacks.
Yeah, I think a lot of creatives though do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So similar to you, I did fashion when I first started out, like model shoots and stuff.
Yeah.
But then through like my endo playing up and stuff, like I just get too fatigued. So for me, interiors and still life is much easier. It's easier to manage. It's a less stressful day. Yeah, intense. Yeah. And I do think like as stylists, if you're good at composition, it doesn't matter what you're styling.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah.
And I do think like food styling for me is a whole different breed. That's something I can't do. I have tried it a couple of times and I'm like, nope, maybe I just ought to stick to cooking my chicken nuggets at home. And but I do think it's so cool that you've tried lots of different things and now you're coming to the point where you're like, right, I love my interiors, I love the art directing. I hear you when you say that art directing feels more grown up, because I looked at art directors and I'm like, oh, you're so grown up. And they might be younger than me.
Yeah, no, they probably are. They're like, they're children.
And then you're like, oh my God, this is such a cool. I think it's because as stylists, you work with your hands, don't you? You don't necessarily, it's not necessarily a digital thing unless you're doing CGI stuff. So for me, it like fascinates me because also I'm dead shit at Photoshop. So, and that kind of thing. So
yeah. I just think but I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm quite aware of the, for me to be like, oh, well, I tried this and I can do this and I can do that and I can do that. It's all about understanding. And I know that I'm in quite a lucky and privileged position in that I have sort of been given the time to do that. My other half is the breadwinner in the sense that he has allowed me to go, actually, maybe I'm going to try a bit of that. And actually, maybe I'm going to do that. And actually, I'm only going to do this year. And actually, but in him doing that and in him supporting that, which I definitely don't take for granted as much as he may think I do. I think that it has allowed me to do the thing that I want to do. And now it is paying off. Like, it has come to fruition because I've been given that time and the space to be able to do that. And I think it's really important for creatives to be quite open to other stuff. I don't really see the term creative being boxed off into, well, you are this and that is what you do. Because like you said, if you know composition and if you understand that, then why not? Like, and when I say I'm a food stylist, I'm not a home ec. Like, I can't, I am definitely not that. And I definitely get offered jobs. And I'm like, oh, what do you want me to do? And they tell me, and I'm like, no. I'm a food stylist. I can make it look good and I can cook and I can do beautiful things with things. But that's a home ec. You need somebody that knows about all sorts of stuff that I have no understanding of. So there's a difference. I wouldn't put myself up against some of the food stylists and home ecs that we've worked with before because they're magicians. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
The stuff I saw them do on a Christmas shoot last summer, it blew my head. I was like, holy shit, this looks amazing. Like, made the turkey look incredible, like all sorts of things. And you're like, I could sit and watch them in wonder for hours. Oh, You know,
And I think with that as well, I think when I've watched those shoots for it's always kind of the Christmas ones or for like cakes and for those kind of brands. And I think there's like magic to it, but also my little boy, because he knows what I do and he's seen me do stuff, he's really like, when he says like advertisement for food, he's like, it's fake. It's all fake. Doesn't look like that. You know, it's all fake. They've just made that burger look like that. It doesn't look like that. If you go and buy it, it doesn't look like that. And I'm like, baby, you can't, like, don't tell the secrets. Like, it does. But he's like, no, it's all fake. It's all fake. And you kind of have to go, well, there is a bit of that. Like, that is our job. You know, we, what did somebody call it? They were like polishing, I'm allowed to say the word, but polishing turds. You know, we get given some horrendous items and you're like, oh wow, okay, right, good. And you put it on set and you and the photographer look at each other and you're like, what are we going to do with this? But that's our job, you know.
Massively. You've just brought back the thought of a gnome. I was handed a gnome by product and it had lost its knees.
Wow.
And Retouch had to work their magic on it. So we like placed it down. It had enough like to explain to the listeners a little bit, like let them behind the curtain kind of thing. If the product has enough space around the part that's missing, you can kind of clone it in. So that's what Retouch had to do. They had to clone Santa's knees in.
Oh my God.
It was insane.
And also, I mean, just the stuff, like the broken stuff you get given, you're like, well, that's all they've sent, so this is what we've got to use. And you're like, okay, good. They've not sent maybe 2 of these things. No, they just sent the one and it's been broken. Fantastic. Okay, what are we doing?
It's almost like we're doing Blue Peter. Here's what I made earlier.
It's just silly. Like, but then I think that is kind of half the point of what we do. I love those jobs. I don't want to do those jobs all the time, but those jobs are funny because it really bonds you and the people you're around. You're like, what are we doing with this? Whereas when you go to the shoots that are, you know, I've got a shoot next week and it's going to be big and wonderful and all singing and all dancing. And I'm probably a lot more nervous about that one. But even though I know everything's going to be beautiful, there's going to be no fudging, there'll be no, let's just whack this up with a bit of blue tack, it'll be fine. And, there'll be none of that. Like, it's going to be pa-ting. And actually, as much as that's lovely, and I can't wait to do it, there is a bit of nervousness in that, you know, with the other stuff, you can just laugh your way out of it to a point, you know, like, well, it can't get any worse than this because it's pretty terrible. So whatever I do to it is going to make it look fantastic. The client's going to love it. But on the flip of it, when it is all singing or dancing and everyone, you know, there's 50 people and there's set builders and there's like, everything's like, you're like, oh, right, I've really got to step my game up. I've really actually got to work harder. You know, it's actually easier to deal with the gnome with no knees in some respects.
Yeah, I agree with you though, because sometimes those big ones, they actually make me more nervous because I'm like, there's so many components that can go wrong outside of my job to then make my job awkward. You know, like you walk in and say like, there's something wrong with the set, or like a light hasn't shown up that's on hire or something else. Then your job, because you're more client facing than all the other external things, then you're like, oh shit, how do we get out of it? How do we make this better? I mean, like, that's also why we've got producers on set as well, isn't it? But sometimes you've still got to, exactly. You've still got to like all help each other, haven't you?
Like and that's what I mean. I think it's really hard when you're kind of in a position whereby you're not all on the same page, because I feel like because we're kind of the last in line to get the information, to get the stuff, but yet we're the first in the firing line. if we literally, that's how it is, isn't it? You're like, we are the last ones to know, unless we're art directing and unless we've been given sort of, like, oh, can you do the mood boards and can you do this? And then that's all been signed off. So then you have had a bit more contact and you're like, okay, yeah, this is my baby and this is what I'm going to give you. Then that's different. But generally speaking, we are just sent an email. Are you available on this day? Yes, I am. Okay, brilliant. 2 days later, this is the client. This is what time you've got to rock up. We rock up and we're like, hi, hello. And you get given products that you've never seen before. You've never maybe heard of the product or the client or the whoever it is. And you're just told, this is our vibe. This is what we want to do. This is your stock. This is your props. Go and do it. And you're like, okay. So you do to the best of your ability based on those things. So you're the last one in. But then if it's wrong, it's like, oh, what's she done that for? And oh no, that's not what we were thinking. And you're like, well, what were you thinking? Like, what were you thinking? Like, tell me what you're thinking and then I can do it for you. If you don't tell me, I don't know. And then you but yeah, it's really hard. Like, it's really great because we have to be very, we have to think on our feet and we've got to be kind of very happy to ad hoc stuff. Because we don't get that much time to plan.
No.
You just don't, do you? Like, that is kind of the majority of work. You get told what day to come in, where to be. And sometimes you don't even know the client. You don't even know who you're working for until you rock up, especially when it's agency stuff. Because you're like, like you and I at the studio we met, the amount of times that we go in, and I kind of love that to a point. But you come in, you're like, hi. And they're like, oh, hi. And you're like, what am I doing? They're like, oh, I don't know. Let's have a look what you're doing today. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, great. And sometimes it's brilliant. And sometimes, it's a gnome with no knees. And you're like,
that poor bloody gnome.
I know.
I think you're right, though. It's a bit of a lottery sometimes. And it depends on the client, whether you get a pre-production meeting. It depends on like the expectations. If it's but if it's e-com stuff, you tend not to get it. If it's a bit more creative, there's lots of different brackets that can fall in there. So circling back to your first uni experience of fashion styling and photography, how did you decide that's what you wanted to go and study at uni?
Oh, God, do you know what? I was actually thinking about this the other day and I don't actually know. I went to a school that was very non-creative. It was really very academic and I didn't belong there. But thank God I went because it's, I think it's done me great things in other ways. It was an all-girls private school and I came out of it with this huge confidence of, I'm a girl, I can do whatever I want. And we were taught that from like age 4. You're a girl, you're amazing, you can do all of this stuff. So in one sense, it was amazing. However, in the other sense, all of my peers, apart from a couple of us, they were all academics. Their parents were doctors and lawyers and that's what they went on to be. So, at sort of 14, 15, I said, oh, I want to be a lawyer because I thought, well, that's what everyone does. So that's what I want to be. And they actually said to me, no, you can't be a lawyer. They were like, I'm sure you'd be great, but you just wouldn't pass the exams. And I was like, oh, right, okay, fine. So I ended up just doing lots more creative stuff, went and did loads more art. But again, it was kind of not really acknowledged to the point that, and this is a story I always tell, but my school had sort of, when we left after our A levels, after sixth form, you got like a booklet for the leavers, and it sort of said, diddler diddler Durham law, diddler diddler Manchester medicine, diddler 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 diddler. Myself and my 2 friends who were going to Chesterfield College to do an art foundation were not included in said booklet.
What?
Our names they weren't on there because, well, I don't know why. I mean, I can only assume that it was because it wouldn't look, I mean, the school is very different now, and it is much more, I think the world has had to embrace creativity a lot more now. But yeah, like we weren't on the booklet. We just weren't there.
That's insane that they like drilled into you, like, you girls can do whatever you want. And then in the end, the booklet, you guys went off to do whatever you wanted. And they were like, no, that's not kind of what we meant. We meant you need to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
What?
That is the juxtaposition, isn't it? So I came out with this huge confidence that I could do whatever I want. And I think it has stead me in really good stead for, you know, throughout my life. I've gone, oh, shall I do that? And I've just done it. And I've never thought, oh, maybe I can't, or probably have more sort of in the last few years. But I think that's all part of like social media and all that baba that suddenly the niggles come in. But prior to that, oh my God, yeah, I just thought I could do whatever I wanted. However, yeah, they did also tell me, no, you won't be a lawyer, Danielle. No, you can't do that. You've got to do this. Or we don't think you should do 4 A-levels. We think you should do 2 and a couple of ASs, because that way they controlled the narrative, didn't they? They controlled that those, I would pass the ones that they let me take, because then their league table wouldn't come down. You know, it's all sort of whatever it is. But at the time, I was like, okay, fine, I won't be a lawyer then. It didn't sort of do anything damaging to me at all. I'm sure it would have done some girls, and I'm sure it did. But yeah, so then I went to London, went to Chesterfield College, did my art foundation, and did like a rotation of stuff, textiles and whatever.
Yeah.
And then I did photography, and I had the most amazing tutor, a guy called Andy, and he was just super cool, really lovely, really liked me, I think, saw something in me that I probably didn't see. I'd just kind of gone there thinking, well, I don't know what else to do, so I'll just go here and see what happens. And he was great. And then we sort of started coming to the end of the sort of halfway through the year, I suppose, when you start having to go, right, well, what are you going to do now? And he was like, you should go to fashion college. In fact, you should go to London and go to fashion college. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, that's what you should do. And I can't even remember the conversation I had with my parents. I have no recollection of it, really. It was just like, oh, okay. So that's what I applied to do. I don't even think I applied anywhere else. You know how you have like your first, second and third choices? I just think I applied. And I didn't do any research. I had no idea what even the course really was. I didn't do anything particularly, you know, it sounds really bad, but it wasn't like I worked really hard and I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to do. And he just said that's what I should do. And I went, okay. So I put it down and then went to the interview and had an all right portfolio, like nothing great, like nothing mega, like, wow, this year's worth of stuff I'd done. And again, I think I got on really well with the main course leader, a guy called Brendan. And I remember he asked, the interview was so hilarious. Like, he asked me what my favourite sandwich was. And I said, and at the time it was like 90, what was it, 98, 99? And I think paninis had just come out or something. And I was like, oh, ham and mozzarella panini. And he went, oh my God, this is the perfect place for you. Downstairs in the little Italian deli, they do amazing paninis. And I was like, oh, perfect. And I laugh to this day, but like my friend always says, I think that's kind of what got you in, that you said that you liked this sandwich. And he was like, yeah, me too. Oh my God, this is the perfect place for you. And so, I got in. I was like one of 30 people on the entire course, which I never really think much about, but actually that's pretty good going for a girl that doesn't really have a lot of art, or didn't think I had a lot of creativity at the time. And there was like me, there was probably about, I'm going to get this wrong and get in trouble probably, but there was probably only about 6 or 7 of us that were English. And
okay.
yeah, so it was like really, there were quite a few people from Japan on the course. I'm going to get this wrong again, like all over the world, these people came to this course, and there was, I feel like there was like 7 or 8 of us that were English, and I met my very best friend to this day on that course. And yeah, so that's kind of just what I did. And it just sounds so silly because it's just sort of like, I just fell into it. Like someone just told me that's what you should do. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do that. And then I did, and I got in, and then that's what I did. So I was like, oh, okay, here I am.
That's so cool that you had like a really mixed like uni experience as well, because I think like that helps creativity if you have lots of different people around that have different upbringings, different cultures, different ideas to you. It almost brings a different wealth to the uni experience, so you're not all just in the same mind.
Yeah, and I think the uni experience for me as well was, again, not something that, obviously most of my friends from school had gone to university the year before, because I took the year out to do the foundation course. So they'd all gone. So I'd visited them, like my best mate that's a doctor, so she was in Manchester, my other friend that was in Durham doing law, and, you know, another friend in Newcastle doing medicine, you know, like, so they were all doing these things. And, you know, they had halls of residence, and they had students' union and all of these things, and they had a campus. And whereas, yeah, Laura and I still laugh to this day, we said to the tutor on our first day, and we were like, so our building was on Davis Street, which is just off Oxford Street. So that's where we were every day. And we went into this building, and I remember saying to them, I don't think it was me, actually, somebody said, you know, where is our campus? And it's such a, like, you know, like whatever thing to say, but he was like, London is your campus. We were like, oh, right, okay. So where's the students' union? Like, where do we? And it was like, none of that. There was none of that. And I didn't get halls because I lived too close. So halls was predominantly full of the foreign students that were here, because obviously they couldn't live at home. I mean, I couldn't realistically in Sheffield, but they were kind of like, I didn't get halls because, yeah, I lived too close. So I got a flat in White City with a girl called, I think she was called Nadia, Scottish girl. And I remember we went down and we just used to look in the paper. What was the paper called? Loot. I think it was called Loot in London. And you'd get this paper and you'd just look at the back of it, and you'd look for, you know, house shares and students looking for another student to go and live with them. So yeah, my parents were just like, oh my God, what's going on? And I was like, yeah, I've just got to go and live in a random flat on the White City estate, which is just near Shepherd's Bush. And and then they just dropped me off that day and was like, bye then. And yeah, it was a university, but there was nobody sort of looking after you. We were kind of just left to our own devices, very much left to our own devices, to the point that you did have to show up, but I probably didn't show up as much as I should have done. But I still managed to pass because I just did. I don't know, I think, whereas, yeah, my other friends, their experiences of university were very different.
Yeah. Really different.
But yeah, just that ridiculous statement, London is your campus.
You've reminded me, my sister went to London School of Economics.
Okay.
And so I never actually went to uni, but I did what you did and kept going down to her to annoy her, basically, most weekends or whenever I wasn't working. And their campus she had like halls just off Trafalgar Square.
Okay.
And then their campus wasn't like one. I'd been to a friend's in Nottingham, I think it was Nottingham Trent, and that was all like one massive campus.
Yeah.
And then when you got to London, it was like, she was like, no, I've got lectures over there. This is over there. The student union's over there. That bit's over there. Like nothing was connected.
No, I think that's the thing. Nothing's connected.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I got the best side of not going to uni was just going and getting pissed and like going and seeing bands and, you know, whatever it did. But I think in a way it then, I'm guessing that, like, I'm speaking for my sister here, but I think she had like a more rounded uni experience because she had to go off and find lots of different things and, you know, and live somewhere different after halls and all sorts.
Yeah, you do. And you kind of, I mean, I don't know. That's the thing though. I don't know what to compare it to because I didn't do it the other way as well. I can only know from what friends have told me, but there was none of that. Like when my husband talks about his university days, they were just so different to mine. Like he talks about living in, you know, halls and then lived with like 8 boys and they just ate pot noodles and got absolutely drunk every single night. Like that's what they did. And to me, that's just alien to me. Like we weren't doing that. You know, I was going to like Planet Organic in Holland Park and I was buying like really nice food and then I was like going to like really nice cafes and we went out and got drunk and went out and partied. But that kind of happened after I'd left probably. That was more sort of when I was like 21, 22, that suddenly that sort of side of things kicked in. But while I was at uni, it was just not. But I think as well, because there was only 30 of us on the course. And like I said, I think 2/3 were foreign students that were living a completely different kind of life. So we weren't like, you know, 50 English people going and getting wrecked every night on 50p shots. Like it just, for me, that just never happened. So I never experienced it, but I'm quite glad I didn't. I think there's a lot, I mean, I'm a bit like, I don't really want to. But you didn't go to uni then. What did you do?
No, so I went and did a BTEC diploma in fine art. Okay. And then I thought I wanted to go to uni. I was really into printmaking. And so they were like, while you're deciding, why don't you do the foundation, which was pretty much just like a condensed version of the BTEC I did. And I actually was telling a story the other day. I actually got kicked out for talking too much and disturbing people. From your
course?
From the foundation. They were like, Charlotte, you're disturbing too many people. You need to decide what you're going to do. Either shut up and stay or you need to leave, basically.
Oh, wow. So you chose to leave.
Yeah, I think I was getting a bit bored, to be brutally honest.
Right.
And the unis I'd gone to look at, all the craft courses that I wanted to do, so like all the handmade stuff, all were stopping and merging into one big course rather than, so I found like a screen print one, I think it was in Cambridge or that way, and I really wanted to do it and they were like, this course isn't going to be available next year. So I was kind of in a quandary of like what to do. Because I knew I wanted to be printmaking and print designing and stuff. So then I just went and picked up more hours at my job, working in the supermarket, and then ended up visual merchandising for a big clothing company in Cambridge.
Oh, okay.
And then fell into styling. So it's all the way along. I've kind of done. It's always been composition for me. It's always been that. And I remember my print teacher just saying like, you've got an eye for composition. Like whenever I was making prints and stuff, he was like, you've got this. So it's no surprise I'm doing this job, but it's the long way around, I think.
I don't think in the best way. And, you know, I loved my time at university, but if I'm honest, I don't know what I really learned, if I'm allowed to say it. I kind of feel like it was more, I paid for the name almost. I went to the London College of Fashion, and yes, some of my tutors, we had rank in there that came, and, it was, we had this amazing woman stylist that was our styling tutor. So I was inspired, like I had lots of like really creative, interesting, inspiring people. I was surrounded by them, and I was in London. So I'm kind of just put in this cultural, amazing pot of amazingness. So I got that from it. But I don't know if I don't know. I thought I was going to go to university and come out and be a famous fashion stylist or a famous fashion photographer, because that's what I went to do. So that's what would obviously happen. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. Like, the facilities were okay and they were great. But again, I'm so old. But, I learned to shoot on film. We had a dark room. That's what I learned to do. And, I learned to develop in that respect. So I had no learning on a digital camera at all. So I feel like what I do now, I don't feel like I came out of that with anything more than just the experience of it. I don't think it was that it taught me how to do certain things and therefore I know how to do these things and that is what I then go on to do. I don't think it had anything to do with any of that. I think it was just, I was just there, immersed in this world, and that's what I got from it, basically. And nothing, and I don't think it taught me any particular skills. Because I don't even know what we all... I think some of the people that I went to uni with have gone on to do great things. One of the guys, Arvid, who I was there with, and Angelo, that they're big photographers now and they're doing brilliant things, but they didn't go into that straight away. It's taken a really long time, but they're doing great things. And Dan, I think he was art director or editor of some like amazing magazine for a while. And my best friend Laura, she went on, she worked at like a model agency. I think she was like receptionist, but now she owns her own amazing, incredibly successful modelling agency down in London, and she's doing brilliantly. Whereas, for me, I went in, I went and assisted the stylist at B magazine. I mean, you won't even know B magazine because it's dead now, but so I did that, but they didn't pay you. They gave me an Oyster card so I could get to work, so it didn't cost me anything, but they didn't pay me. But then I got freebies, like I got to take stuff away, but I just ended up working in pubs because I needed to earn money, and B magazine were never going to pay me, I don't think, because they would just, there were so many girls like me just clambering for those jobs. And so, there was never going to be, I don't think I was ever, and I think it was quite elite. I did sort of realise as well that it was quite, and I'd been to a private school, so I wasn't sort of like, oh wow, everyone's really a certain way at all, but it is quite elitist. Well, it definitely was sort of in the early 2000s. Everybody that worked there, and I say work, nobody was really getting paid a great deal.
Yeah.
But they were able to, because they were quite wealthy and they had the support, the economic support to be able to do that. But I didn't, my parents couldn't just afford for me to live. So, I just ended up getting jobs in bars, and that's just what I did for ages. So I did that was related to being creative for however many years. But then I got offered a job as an assistant manager in the pub that I was working in, and they were going to pay me like 23 grand. And at 23 years old, or however old I was like, that's amazing. Like, oh my God, yes. So took the job, left B, and and then probably spent the next, oh my God, maybe 10, 15 years in hospitality. Like, was taking photographs, but not in a professional sense at all. Like, absolutely not. And I was just, yeah. But again, I had, again, it was just a great experience. Like,
yeah.
I just think it's important. I think it's nice to have gone down a path, and that's what you do, and that's what you learn to do. And I'm quite envious in some ways of those people, because you think, wow, they just knew what they wanted to do and they just did it. And so they've been doing what they wanted to do for so much longer. Whereas for me, it's probably only in the last, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were periods in sort of my 20s and early 30s where I was doing amazing things. Like, I was maitre d' at the Ivy for years, and then I ran their Ivy Club, and then I went and worked at the Wolsey, and I did, brilliant things and had amazing experiences and met some absolutely amazing people. I met some pretty horrendous people as well.
I can imagine.
But again, it was a great experience, and I really enjoyed it. And and then I made knickers for a while, and I had a stall on Portobello, and that was my other life, and I did that for a bit. And so I've had all these little pockets of doing different things, but it was only really, I'm trying to think when it was that I kind of decided to properly sort of focus again on, I think it was probably once I'd had Vincent, my first, because we left London. That was it, really. We left London. So I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Because I can't be a maitre d' anymore, because they don't have much call for that where we are now. Not a massive need for it. So yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I like the idea that I've had lots of different experiences, and I think it makes it, I shouldn't do down on it that it's taken me this long to work out what I want to do. But yeah, there is something quite lovely about those people that go, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to this university, I'm going to get the degree, and then I'm going to go and get a job and do that. And that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And you're like, oh, wow. Yeah. That must be so nice, so fulfilling to just know and just do it. And you're like, wow, isn't that great?
I do think it's a lot of pressure for teenagers to be asked at the tender age of 18, like, pick a uni degree, because that's what you're going to be doing for the next 60 years.
Your life. Yeah.
And like, I don't feel like life is like that anymore.
No.
I feel like we
thank
are, thank God. We are all on lots of different journeys, and I feel like in order to be a more rounded person, really, you should go off and do lots of different things. And like, there's things that you'll have pulled from your maitre d' days that still impact how you run your business now. And, there's stuff that can get pulled. I mean, like, fuck me, when I worked as a visual merchandiser, it taught me the lesson that I really don't generally like the general public. This was in Cambridge, and I have seen some shockers in Cambridge. I won't fill you in on all of the filthy stories, but like, I think like you have to do these things, and then you learn, especially as a teenager, you learn how to speak to people, how like sometimes, like, I'm a bit direct, a bit blunt. Can't always be like that with people. You've got to learn these nuances in order to become a more rounded person. And I think, like, also, if you're going back to your days at B, they should have paid you. And I don't know what internships and stuff are like now, but from what I see on social media and stuff, they're still not fully paid, and it becomes very elitist when actually we need diversity in our creative world. Like, it's what we thrive off.
Totally. I think, I just think some things were just taken as that's just the way it was. There was never, there wasn't really anything. I mean, I can't even really remember when if I really, really, really try and think back, I can't even remember how I got that job, how long I did it for, like, where did that come from? But I just know that I just remember thinking, gosh, I couldn't do this unless I was working. And I just remember them giving me, I got my travel paid for. Was it even an Oyster card then? Were Oyster cards there? But I got my travel paid. yeah, but then also I feel like it makes me much more open to, I feel like I can pretty much talk to anybody from any walk of life, from, especially my maitre d' days. And again, I didn't even know what a maitre d' was when I went and got that job. I had no clue. I think I was doing my knickers, and I wasn't selling that many, and they were way too expensive. They were taking me way too long, but they were really beautiful. And then I was going out with a guy, and he lived with a guy called Charlie Ward, who's an artist, an amazing artist. He lives in Marseille now. And and I remember just sat around their table one night going like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was working in a shop, and I was just kind of, just doing random stuff, just kind of getting by. And he was like, you should like working at the Ivy or something. And I was like, what is the Ivy? He was like, yeah, you should go and like, that's what you should do. You're really good at talking to people, you're really confident, like, you're really like the extroverted. And I was like, I'm really not. And he was like, you are, like, that's what you should do. So we wrote this CV and we sent it off to their like HR department, their recruitment department. And I remember the email I got back. No, I got a phone call, I think, from this lady, and she said, hi, we got your CV. Looks really good. You sound really interesting, and we'd really love to meet you. But you didn't actually apply for a job. Like, I didn't actually put which job it was. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And she said, maybe I think you'd be quite good as like maybe an assistant maitre d'. And I said to her, what's a maitre d'? And she said, okay, I think we should get you in. And so I did. I just went in, and again, just met with the director, this amazing character called Fernando. I think he's probably still there to this day. I don't know. And I just met with him. We had a cup of tea, and he was like, brilliant, let's get you started. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, who even am I? But again, it's all those things. So I feel like what I was trying to say at the beginning of that was, it's just made me much more open-minded to experiencing new things. And especially now I've got children, I want them to, I don't want them to pigeonhole themselves immediately. Like, I have none of that pressure on them at all. I don't want them to think that they have to make that decision, because look at mummy. Mummy didn't have a clue what I was doing until I was, probably mid-30s. So it's like, and mummy's really happy, and, and we're doing all right, and it's okay. And you can be, yes, I have got my husband that probably enables a lot of that. But I'd like to think that even if I didn't, before I met him, I was doing fine and I was having a great time. And I think that's kind of one of the most important things that I can give to my kids, is that they don't have to make those decisions, and that actually it's really important to try lots of things, because something that they think they might want to do now, they're babies, but, even when they're 16 and they're or when do you choose your GCSEs? Is that like 14 or 15?
14, yeah.
14. I mean, 14. But I mean, you're kind of doing everything anyway, aren't you? At 14, you've got to do like A or something. But, when they're 16 and they've got to choose their A levels, and then when they're 17 and they've got to decide what they're going to do after that, are they going to go and, I just think I will have none of that for them at all. It'll just be like, I don't know, what do you like doing, baby? What do you want to do? Like, what makes you happy? And I think, with that comes the caveat that you do have to survive. So, yeah. Yes, it's all very well me sitting here going, just be free, baby, just do what you want, which there will be a part of me that is very much like that. I think there will have to be a part of it that's like, okay, well, how can we ensure that you survive and can live life in doing that thing? Because there's loads of stuff you can do. I think, there's loads of stuff you can do now that doesn't necessarily, and also doesn't really warrant a university degree. I think that me going to LCF was was great. And then, could I have done it without that? Could I be doing the job that I'm doing without that qualification? 100%, because I don't think anyone knows that I have that qualification. It's not like you need to present it to go and get a job in our industry at all. I think it gave me the wealth of, immersiveness and understanding different walks of life and being surrounded by culture and all of that stuff. So it did that. But, I didn't need that qualification. I could have saved myself quite a lot of money in some respects. But, look at you. Like, I bet I think if we sat down with loads of, well, you do. In fact, you do sit down with that's what you do. But like, I bet actually there isn't that many that have these university degrees or have these like insane qualifications, because actually it's just not. Yeah, I think it's much more about experience and much more a natural talent. Dare I say that? Is that a bit wanky?
No, I think you're right. And I think a lot of people that I've spoken to, it seems to be quite a mixed bag, where people have gone to uni, loved it, gone to uni, hated it. I've had people come on and say like they went to uni literally to make a portfolio.
Right, okay.
And then there's been people that dropped out.
Yeah.
And then I've had people on who, like me, didn't go and found a different route in. But I do think that, like you were saying with your kids as well, like success is a funny thing, because I think it's all dependent on what you think of as being successful.
Yeah.
For me, it's having food on the table, clothes on my back, and a roof over my head.
Yeah.
I'm lucky in the sense, same as you, my other half is full-time, so it evens us out a little bit. Helps us out. But I do think that like this age-old thing of like having to go a certain route and be that way, I feel like it's dying. Like we don't need to be put in a pigeonhole, and sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves in order to get recognized so that people book us or whatever. That's a way of work. But I don't think it's necessary to be pigeonholed anymore. And I think it's a nice thing that you can change, and you showing your kids like you can do lots of different things, and that's okay. As long as you can survive. Doesn't really matter.
Because they said, I think it was my little boy, and he was like, can you have more than, or my little girl said, can you have more, one of them said, can you have more than one job, mummy? And I was like, well, look at mummy. Mummy's got hundreds of jobs. Like, and they quite rightly, one of them said, yeah, but they're all kind of the same. As in, they're all, it's not like I'm a bus driver, but I'm also a photographer, but I'm also a, I don't know, a doctor. Like, I think the point was that they were like, can you be two completely different things? And I was like, well, you can. I said, people change their career halfway through their lives, and that's great. I think those people are actually the most, to a point, not well-rounded, but I feel like people that have diversified slightly. And I think that goes even with being a doctor, again, my friends that are doctors, they've diversified in their medicine. They've kind of moved through and they've gone, actually, this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do. Whereas potentially if you've come out of uni and you've gone, right, I want to be a GP, and then you are a GP for, 30 years, again, all power to you. I don't want to be a GP, and I couldn't be a GP. But again, it's like it's the one track route. It's like that's what they're doing. Whereas the people that kind of, one of my friends is now a helicopter doctor, so she's like gone on to do all that sort of stuff, and that's like amazing. Like, wow. So she's got all of those different experiences. I think that's the key to everything that I'm kind of saying. I think it's about experiences, and you can't learn certain things in a school environment or a university environment or even in a work environment. I think it's really important to have as many experiences as possible, even the bad ones, even the bad ones. It's not just about, oh, isn't life amazing? And I've had all these amazing experiences. I've had some absolute shocking experiences, and, worked with horrible people, worked with incredible people, met awful people, met wonderful people. And I think it's all like that. It's really important. Like, none of the stuff, I think it's that thing about, again, being open-minded, like what we were talking about just prior to this, about having your eyes open to, oh, wow, people are quite one-track minded sometimes, and actually very closed and whereas because we work in a creative industry, we're kind of surrounded by people that are quite open and quite interesting. Curious, that's exactly it. Like, just curious and interested in the world, and therefore just open to it, and want to experience that stuff with you. Whereas, like I said, moving back up north to where I am now, it's definitely, I do feel like a fish out of water, 100%. And I long for London in so many ways, but then in other ways I don't. But, that's your kind of, but I just think I want my kids to have the same kind of experiences that I had. Because I don't think it can do them any harm. I think it's I think it's super important. I just trying to think about those jobs where you just don't meet anybody really. Like, your life is just, again, you kind of, it's the same almost. Whereas, we kind of are constantly meeting new people, having to go, oh, okay, I need to put this hat on actually, because like when you were saying that actually you can be quite blunt sometimes, and you can be quite, actually, oh no, I can't do that here. And you have to adapt. Like, we have to be kind of chameleons. You walk into a studio or you walk into a client meeting and you can pretty much instantly get a take on, okay, I've got to be this person actually today, because otherwise it's all going to go wrong. And you just kind of have to, you've just kind of got to do that.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's a creative, I find a lot of creatives can read people quite well.
Yeah.
And you do have to put those hats on, and you just go like, right, okay, cool, you need this person today, you need this person today. And you just adapt, yeah. But I think you're right, it goes back to having those life experiences, because there's some points, and I won't divulge too much in it, but like when I was younger, I was a studio manager, and it was a baptism of fire, and I don't think I'd ever be a studio manager again. And so that lesson I learned from the fact that, like, it was horrible. I ended up like losing 2/3 of my hair, lost a lot of weight. They thought I was having like a stroke. Is it a stroke when you lose your feeling in your hand and stuff?
Yeah,
it was just all stress. So in that, I then learned how my body reacts to stress. If we look at it from a positive point of view, I see how my body reacts to stress, and I know that I'm not going to put myself in that situation again, or in certain situations whereby my body reacts in such a manner. But only by having that experience did I know that was going to happen. So had I not have gone through the literal hell that it was, I wouldn't be able to sit here now and be able to
and recognize it and know when it's going to happen, and go, oh no, this isn't good, like we can't do this actually, that's not working for me.
And so to understand your own boundaries as well, especially in our industry, like we were saying earlier, sometimes you have clients coming in, and sometimes you have to appease your client always. And sometimes they just need somebody to say, like, what is it you want there? Is it a tree? Is it a Christmas tree? Is it a chair? You tell me what you want and I'll put it in.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's knowing the boundaries, and it's also like, but I wouldn't have learned all of that had I not have gone through that horrible experience.
Yeah. You'd rather have not, probably.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You're not like, oh, wasn't that like, I'm so pleased that happened. Never to that point. But you can't have, I just feel like you can't have it all. You can't have the wealth of experience that you've got and the knowledge that you now have and all of those things without having gone through the crap and having gone through the shit and all of that stuff. Because, I mean, I think if you were only faced with the crap and only had bad experiences, then that obviously leads to a very different place. But I think it's like you said, there's balance, and there's, you know, now that you know that that's what happens, you can kind of make the choices that are correct. Whereas without knowing what the choices are, how do you know what the bloody correct one is? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And I still don't know. Like, I still don't know. Like me saying, oh, it's really great doing all these different things and having all these different hats and being freelance. And, you know, there are days when I think, oh, I just really quite like a job, actually. I just really like to know that I'm going to wake up and this is my job, this is my job title, and this is who I work for, and I get paid X amount. And because I do find there are definitely times where I find it exhausting having so many hats on. Like, I know I've seen it on your stories before about, like, you know, I am HR, I am the accounts department, I am the quote department, you know, I am the production, you know, I am for so many different jobs. And I do think there are some days where I just go, oh my God, like, I've been 15 different people today, and nobody's, and I've not even got paid for it, because it's like, it's one of those days where you're like, right, I've sent 3 quotes out, I've done 2 contracts, I have replied to 7 emails, I have invoiced so-and-so, I've done my expenses for that job, I've done some stuff on Instagram, I've spoken to my client about her lounge, I have, and then, you know, and you just think, oh God, I just like to do one thing and just do it really well. But, you know, I don't think we'd work in that environment either. I think we'd do it for a bit. We'd like, oh my God, isn't this amazing? And then we'd get sacked. Like I would. I'd say something wrong, or like you said, you go into a studio and you can be a bit outspoken and you can say something, and then, they might not call you back for a while, but you're not going to get sacked, because then they'll forget about it and somebody else will come in and be like, oh, do you know a stylist? And someone say, oh yeah, Danielle, or oh yeah, Charlotte. So you can do those things. Whereas, I think if I was in a full-time job, eventually I'd just get sacked. They'd just be like, no, you can't, you're too much. You can't, you can't do that.
I mean, I did 3 months at a studio, and I was full-time.
Right.
And within...
Like on a salary, like proper paid person. Oh, wow. Okay.
And within 2 weeks, I felt like a pending chicken. I was like, I don't like this. And then we had lots of life stuff happen. So actually I had to step away because also I wasn't really enjoying it. Because there was days where you're at the peril of somebody else. So you're sat, peril's maybe not the right word, but you're sat there and you're like, right, there's no work on. So I'll mood board, or I'll do this, or I'll do this. And it's boring, but you've still got to show up. Whereas in my head, I was like, I've got no work on. I can go and clean my house, or I can take the dog for a long walk, or, you know, like in my head, I was like, there's jobs I need to be doing.
Yeah.
But you're having me sit here doing mood boarding's great. I love it. But like, I can sit and do that at home. Whilst I've got loads of washing on or whatever. So that was I tried it, went, oh God, this isn't for me, and came back out again. But I think it's, you know, there's certain creatives who enjoy being full-time, and then there's certain creatives who they're at their best being a freelancer, being self-employed. But I am completely with you in wearing lots of different hats. Sometimes I throw all my hats at the wall because I've had enough of it, or like somebody will message me and be like, your website's not working, and I'm like, great, now I've suddenly got to be a tech wizard. And then that's when I phone my friend who is a designer, and I'm like, hun, I don't understand, why is this bit not talking to this bit? They just, and you know, you've got to figure it out. But then, like you say, you've got to do your marketing.
You can't go, like you said, you can't go to the tech team and say, you know, like, like my husband, if his computer's not working, he just calls a person, and the person goes, okay, and they go into his computer and they sort it out. And if, you know, his expenses haven't been paid, he just sends an email and somebody deals with it. And you're like, you just live this, you know, it's a completely different world. You're like, I don't have anyone to do that for me. Like, that's all me. And like, and I'll tell him like the things that got to do that day or that I've done. And he'll just be like, oh my gosh, Danielle, like my mind would have exploded. And I'm like, exactly. So that is why, you know, my studio looks like this. Just pandemonium, because it's the absolute last thing on my list. Like I just haven't got, you know, the priority of stuff and how it has to happen. I just haven't got that level of, some things just fall by the wayside, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. You can't, but yeah, it is funny, the difference of, and I think some creatives are much happier. I think it depends how much autonomy you have in a full-time job. Like I know that some full-time stylists who work in-house, I think if you're quite high up in the sense of you're actually making creative decisions, I feel like that's a nice place to be.
Mm.
And I think that would be lovely to a point again. But if you're working in-house, then it means that you're generally doing the same thing because you're working for a company. I think if you're agency-based, I think that's pretty much not like the golden chalice, but I feel like that's quite, if you work for a really cool agency and again you've got loads of autonomy and you're working on different projects all the time, again I think that's pretty good and that would be a lovely place to be. But I don't know if you could ever compare like money and stuff like that, because they just can't. When you compare it, you just can't. So, you know, we have to just, as freelancers, sometimes I just have to suck it up and go, do you know what, Danielle, you'd hate that actually. And actually you get to do this and you do get to, you know, I had 3 days off this week. So I've got to do this. I've been painting my stairs. I've been doing some lovely personal projects that if I was full-time, I wouldn't be able to do. I'd have to take holiday to do that.
Yeah.
And you so I think it is a bit of suck it up. And this is what you've I feel like for younger people, I feel like if you want to kind of do this, you do have to do a bit of the hard graft and you aren't going to be, I think that's where Instagram just is, that Instagram versus reality stuff is really like the more, like I'm posting more on Instagram when I'm not busy. Yeah. But then because when I'm busy, I haven't got time to be doing that. So it's the irony, but still when I look at Instagram and I see people like posting loads of stuff and I'm like, oh, wow. Oh God, I'm so crap. I'm not doing as much as them. And you're like, well, actually, hang on a minute, Danielle, you only post stuff when you're quiet. So they probably are as well, you know, like, but even as a grown up, I find it really tricky, but I feel like for the young 20-somethings that want to get into this, they think that it's all going to be like, wow, I'm going to be like shooting for Vogue or I'm going to be doing this stuff. And it's like, it's not, mate, actually. You've just got to shoot that cup on a plain white background and you've got to do it 40 times for the next sort of 6 months. And then you will get more, you know, you've got to like do all the other stuff like we did, you know, like crap and that we still do. The gnome with no knees.
The gnome with no knees. Yeah.
I mean, he just keeps coming back. But it's like you've got to just, it isn't real. And, you know, our lives are, you know, we're doing all right and we're doing what we want to do. And some days we're putting hair down a plug because it's for, you know, a plumbing advert and you've got to pretend that there's hair down a plug. And then some days you're on a beautiful set or you're being flown to Portugal to do something amazing. And, you know, like you've just got to, I think it's hard. I think it must be much harder. I think it's easier to get into for the kids, but I think it's harder for them to understand that not everybody's doing these amazing things. It's just not reality. We're not. Yeah. It's just not real.
I agree with you. And I think when you were saying about your social media as well, something that I learned from Zara, who's been on the podcast actually, she said schedule it out, even on LinkedIn and stuff. And she said schedule it out as many times as you want, even if it's once a week, once a month, whatever. schedule it out so that you don't panic when it's busy, because then people will always see you. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, like, I chat a lot of shit on LinkedIn,
Do
but
you?
it's, I'm like, I think it was yesterday, I put up a post about playlists, like Spotify playlists when you're in the studio.
Okay.
And because I was listening to Meatloaf and Bon Jovi. So I just
Wow.
started like that. And then, it gets conversations going, and then people inquire, or,
Okay.
maybe just find me funny. I don't know, either
Yeah.
or. But then on my social media as well, on my work one, I was like posting 3 shots of what I'd done a week. And I soon realised I'd run out of stuff because I forgot to ask for stuff, or you're shooting it 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
So now I'm like mixing it up a bit. But I think it's just being regular and making sure you're in people's eye. But we are all guilty of doing that. When we're quiet, we're like, shit, need to look at my website, need to look at all the stuff that's fallen by the wayside when you're busy.
Yeah.
Because who's got time to look at their bloody website when you're rammed to the rafters and you get home and you're like, shit, I need to walk the dog, hoover, do all this other stuff. And you don't have time to look at it.
No.
So I think like that's definitely something that's helped me out.
Yeah, you see, people do that, don't they? I'm just absolutely terrible at planning. I'm kind of averse to it. I'm just really rubbish at it. But yeah, I know that that's what other people do, when you're just like, how does that person do it? And they say, I schedule it in. I do it at the beginning of the month and I pick everything that I'm going to do. And I'm like, but how do you know? Like, how do you know what you want to say 3 weeks from Thursday? Like, how do you know that? Because I have no understanding of that forward kind of thinking. So I just, I can't. And I'm crap, therefore, and suddenly do nothing on Instagram for a month, literally nothing. I might like share a few random stories that I find, or I might share like a lovely post or a terrible post or something. But for myself, sort of, like for my self-advertising, self-marketing, like there might be a month, maybe 2 months that goes by and I don't post anything. And then suddenly I'll be like, oh, actually, that last post has been there since January. I should probably put something else on my feed, because when I'm sending people to my Instagram, they're going to be like, oh, she's not done anything. But then, but then you just get into that murky world of, being seen and blah, blah, blah. And actually, I just, I can't, I just haven't got the capacity for it because of the amount of jobs that I do. And I have small people that, it's just not on my radar really. And actually it's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to sort of be looking, but then I suppose that's why it probably is better to schedule. Those people are probably doing it much better than I am, because they spend a day going, right, this is what I'm going to sort. So yeah, maybe I should. Thanks, Zara, and thanks, Shah, because maybe that is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put pressure on myself by doing it once a month. I do it once a week, and then like I think I put a reel up the other day that was me hoovering some artificial grass, because that's also part of our job. And
like we'll do stuff like that if we're on a shoot and it's funny. Then we'll definitely like post the randomness of it, or like, I'll do that on jobs, but it's more the posts, I think, that I'm not as good at.
But I think also sometimes I post it and then I'm like, oh, I'm just shouting into the void.
Yeah.
Like, who's even looking at this? Also, who even gives a shit?
Yeah. Like I did that thing where you know how you can turn off the likes. So you can turn off so people can't see how many likes you've got or how few likes you've got. And I do think that I'm like, hang on a minute, I've got X amount of followers. Why are they following me? Because I've got 5 likes for a post. I'm like, who am I putting this out there for? Like, what's the benefit? And then and then you do your stories and you'll be like, oh, okay, like 350 people have seen that story, but I've engaged 2 and they're my friends. And you're like, what's going on? Like, what are we even... I don't know. I think it depends if you get lots of work through Instagram. Like I don't. That's not where my work comes from. Do you get work through Instagram? Do you get people coming to you via that?
I've had a few.
Okay.
So yeah, I've had a few. So for me, it like benefits me. Whereas initially LinkedIn didn't benefit me because I wasn't posting. I wasn't this is going to sound a bit wanky as well, but I wasn't my authentic self. And I was just robotically putting out like, I'm available.
Yeah. Hi,
So
I'm
like,
available.
Hello, I've got the whole month. Someone book me, please. I'd like to feed my dog.
Yeah.
But I think now that I'm a bit more myself on there, people are messaging me and they're fine, and people are following and stuff, whatever else is going on with it. But the algorithms on like Instagram and stuff, I don't understand, nor do I care to understand. So I just kind of put it out, hope that I'd like to think I make people laugh with some of the stuff. And then also just showcase a bit of my nice work. And then people get to see me. They kind of get to know what they're going to get on set, which is a very chatty person who can still do her work. I'll just aforemention that.
She can work and chat at the same time.
Yes.
Very multitasking.
Yes. And will absolutely shut up when someone asks me to.
Yes. Yes. I think that's actually sort of hit the nail on the head, isn't it? I think being the ones that are getting probably more through social media are people that are just being themselves. Whereas I think, like my friend always says to me, he's like, why don't you put yourself on? So there was a period, especially in lockdown, when I was doing loads of photography and styling, and pretty much every day I was going on and doing a story, and it was me just talking, and I was engaging so much because it was me, and I was not necessarily getting work but engagement for whatever purpose. Whereas now I don't do that much of me. Like, I'm not really, if you look at my Instagram feed, I'm not on there, I'm not there. It's just my work. It's purely, this is the photo I did, this is the thing I did, this is the thing I did. So, especially for my interiors that I'm going to hopefully do much more of for sort of, personal clients, it's more, my friend Richard keeps saying, just put yourself on there. Like, you're quite likable, you're quite nice, like, do something, and, people lap that up, like, just be you. But it's that thing of like, but then, get over yourself, Danielle. My friend Vicky, actually, she works for an American company. And so Americans are very, go girl, go sister, like very much sort of self-affirming, and, they've got each other's backs. Whereas the British, we do feel like, it's a bit cringy and whatever. And she said to me, she was like, oh, I don't know who she quoted, but she said it was like, just, get over yourself, Danielle, and back yourself. Like, just forget about it. Like, nobody cares. And if they do, fuck them. Like, they're not important. And that's not, who you're trying to appeal to anyway. You don't want to work for those people. Yes. So it doesn't matter. You want to work for people like you, or that people that like you. So yeah, I mean, I think what you're doing is exactly the way you should do social media. You should just 100%, not to go all American, but 100% authentically you, giving your truth. But it's true. It's like, people like that. That's kind of the whole point. Like, I like it. That's who I engage with. When I see people just talking and I'm like, oh, you're lovely, aren't you? Oh, you're really nice. And you're just being you. And sod the people that will mock it or boo it. But I feel like...
Yeah, I think that's it. It is hard. It's hard to be... It's cringe. Someone else messaged me actually on Instagram, was like, you're so confident on Instagram. And I'm like, it's because I just don't give a shit.
Yeah.
If you like it, cool. If you don't, and you're
Yeah.
bored of my voice, like my husband is, put your earphones in and
Yeah.
scroll past.
Don't engage.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But I think that has only come as I've gotten older and as I've got more self-aware, and probably therapy has probably helped too. Like, and just become very much myself and just gone like, I am who I am, and I'm not here for everybody to like. So, you know, sod it. The people who like me and who want me on their set and want me to work for them will find me.
Yes.
Or I'll find them.
Yes.
But it's just, yeah, I think social media is just a very fickle place, or can be a very fickle place.
It's a murky world.
Very murky. So tell me about your interiors, because I know that you mentioned earlier that you are possibly going back to uni to do some interiors.
Yeah. I want to. I'm hopefully starting. I was supposed to start in March this year, but life events sort of during Christmas and just after prohibited that, unfortunately. So I'm hoping to start in September. And yeah, I want to get my interior design degree. I'd quite like it. And I think it would I think people, especially personal clients, I think it's a bit different if I was like, I'm doing what I'm doing now and I just said, oh, I don't think I need that piece of paper because I've never given it anybody. But I think there are certain things. I've done a couple of private clients and I'm doing my own house as well. And there are certain things that I don't know and I do need to learn. Somebody needs to teach those to me. And I think lots of people could say, oh, just go on YouTube and, you know, Google it, or, you know, go on whatever they go on these days and, you know, someone will be there doing a video on it. And I get that. But I think there's something, again, it's a bit more grown up for me to go, actually, I've been to uni and I've now got this qualification and I therefore feel much more confident. I think that would give me the confidence to put myself out there a bit more, to understand that that's what I want to do, and have the confidence to know that I can do it. Like, I can do the colours and I can do the design and I can make mood boards till my, you know, ears fall off. But it's I think there's a different side of interior design that's a bit more mathematical and a bit more understanding things that I don't understand them. And I have made not mistakes, but there have been learnings. And I think had I got the knowledge, had it not just been me going in and going, oh, this will look fabulous, darling, and oh, I'm going to put this here, and oh, let's paint this wall that, and oh, let's get you some, we're going to build you this, and oh, we're going to do this, and this is what we're going to do. And actually, the practical side of things is quite different to me just going in and being like, badum, because that's what we do in our styling world. We don't need to worry about the details because that's already been done. The set build's been built, or the studio, you know, somebody else has dealt with that. We just go in and do the ba-bum. So with the interiors, you need to do all the background stuff. And I've kind of, I've had a couple of learnings where I've gone, oh, okay, I probably need to understand that a bit better. So that's the plan. And it'll be great. I mean, I'm quite excited. And I am going to go, so you can do it online, but I'd be terrible. I just wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't. I'd be like, oh God, no. And I'd get really bored. So I've opted for the going into school. So I'm going to go to Salford. And go back to uni. But
that's so exciting.
Yeah, it'll be great. I'm really excited. I was really excited. And then, shit happened. So I kind of didn't do it. But it's kind of, and I kind of then went, oh, I don't really want to do it anyway. No, I don't need to do it. No, it's fine. Like, whatever. But actually, now that's what I really want to do. And so I'm going to. Like,
yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Life's short. Got to do what you want.
Yeah, totally. And I think it'll just stand me in better stead doing also it'll give me more context and more understanding in styling work. Like, it's only going to add to that. And yeah, I think, and just for my house and things that I take on thinking, well, I can do that. No, you fucking can't, Danielle. But, you know, actually I have, and I've done it, but it would have probably been easier had I got the skills that this could give me. So yeah. That's what that's the next life decision I've made, I suppose, is the right word.
It's so exciting.
Yeah.
I've got one last question for you, and you answer it however you see fit. But what inspires you?
What inspires me? Kind of, I don't know how to answer that. The world, like, it sounds so silly, but I still walk around and I get amazed by seeing beautiful things, and I look up. You know, I'm one of those people that, you know, I'm like that person going, look up, like, just look up. And I'm really inspired by, like, but I'm inspired by beautiful things. I'm quite aesthetic in the sense of, but I find beauty in all sorts of strange places. So it's not just, and also I'm inspired by everything that's old. I really have quite an affinity with old things. I love textures and touching things, and anything that's tactile. I'm like averse to modern. I'm not very good at it at all. So yeah, I'm kind of inspired by the beauty of old things.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Is that the answer? Yes. I feel like that's kind of what. Yeah, I just like walking around and looking at beautiful things and seeing beautiful things, like, and I think it's really important, again, to have those experiences. Like, I take the kids to random art galleries, and I take them to random cities, and I make them travel with me, and I want them to see all this amazingness, because there's so much to be inspired by. Like, the world's amazing. You can look at the really dark part of it, but, like, look at the buildings that somebody built, and the bridge, and, like, look at that flower, and oh my God, look at that wall. Someone built that. And look at, I feel like that's what inspires me. I don't really know what I said inspires me, actually, but just that.
I think it's surroundings, and like you say, with textures and stuff, I'm similar when I go to like National Trust and stuff. I'm like touching moss, or I'm touching brick, or I'm like, and I don't know whether, again, I don't know if it's a creative thing. We see things differently, I think. And like,
I think you've just said it. It is just my surroundings. I feel like you just look up. Just for God's sakes, look up, because it's really lovely. There's some really beautiful, lovely things that will inspire you. And then you go home and go, oh, what can I do? So I think that.
Definitely. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. It's been lovely. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye!